Welcome to today's webinar, using Kiuwan with the Eclipse IDE. My name is JD Burke. I'm the good-looking one. I'm joined today by Aaron Martinez. He's the smart one. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a background of Kiuwan and the other IDE plugins we have, and lead us up to that point where Aaron's going to walk us through an actual demonstration of how the Kiuwan Eclipse plugin works. We do have an agenda for today. I'll go over a little bit about us, Kiuwan, and then we'll talk a little bit about the IDE plugins in general, and then we'll drill down into the Eclipse IDE specifically. It's a little bit different than the other IDE plugins, and Aaron's going to show us actually how to use it in detail, how to install it, how to run some scans, and leverage some of the power of that plugin. And then at the end, we'll close, like I said, with Q&A session where we'll field any questions that you guys have and then wrap it up. So Aaron and I work for a company called Kiuwan. Kiuwan is a global SaaS company, so software application security testing, and SCA company. So we do code scanning on your software. Kiuwan's actually a member of the IDE family of products, and we specifically live in the DevOps group. Our cousins in that DevOps group of the IDE family include names that you might recognize, like TestRail, Assembla, Ranorex, and Travis CI. As I said, we're SAST, so static application security testing. That's where we scan your source code and look for patterns that represent security flaws or quality issues, as defined by a pile of normative standards that we support. In the kind of overall pipeline view of the world, Kiuwan with its SAST and SCA offering live over on the left end of the pipeline. And to the right of us, you'll find the operations people. And in between Kiuwan and the operations people, you'll typically find things like IAST and DAST. As I said, Aaron and I spend a lot of time scanning source code, and we scan your source code and we look for patterns as defined by normative standards. And here you see an example of some of those standards that we scan for, just something like 12 plus, 13 plus standards that we look for. And we also support or organize our world based on frameworks. So frameworks for common languages that we support and that you might use. When we scan your code looking for vulnerabilities, those standards tell us to look for things like these. So you may not actually know the CERT or MISRA standards, but you probably know these vulnerabilities: SQL injection, file handling, information leaks, that kind of stuff. That's what we help you find in your code. We also do software composition analysis. Software composition analysis, or SCA, is scanning your third-party and open source packages for vulnerable components. So generally speaking, a majority of your code is written using includes and imports and third-party and open source packages. And frequently, those things that you're building your code out of are not good, and they have vulnerabilities in them. And we help identify which ones of those packages have vulnerabilities that you might be interested in remediating or working on. I alluded to how we do not only software security as SaaS and SCA, but also software quality. Kiuwan actually has its roots in software development, software quality, and we see the world via ISO 25000, generally speaking, which you would know of as portability, maintainability, efficiency, reliability, and security. So we scan your code and we look for specific security issues, but we also take a view of the rest of the ISO 25 world and comment on things like complexity, code duplication, and other code quality parameters. Kind of a high-level overview, we are actually a SaaS, so cloud-based offering. A lot of the analytics happens in the cloud, but our analyzer, our agent, is actually deployed on-prem. We take the agent to the code, and scan your code on-prem and then pump the results up to the cloud, and then we augment the results in the cloud, and then allow you to mine those results for data and value. In a pipeline kind of view, you can see how Kiuwan plugs into the developer space, either at the physical developer's machine, which is a lot of what we're going to talk about today with the IDE plugins, or you can sprinkle it other places in the developer's space, namely at the input to the repo. And if you are using Kiuwan to its fullest power, you can pull out security artifacts from your code base, excuse me, and then feed those security artifacts to the left and the right to help inform the other stakeholders in the DevOps pipeline. So today, as promised, we're going to be speaking a lot about the Kiuwan IDE plugins. So Kiuwan maintains IDE plugins that allow you to plug or connect Kiuwan to your IDEs. We maintain those for 3 families of IDEs: the Visual Studio family, the JetBrains, which are things like PyCharm, and Eclipse family. Aaron's going to be talking to us. Today's demonstration today is about Eclipse and how that works. All of our plugins for Eclipse, JetBrains, and Visual Studio allow you to view data from Kiuwan. So as you scan your code, results are pushed up to Kiuwan. The IDE plugins pull that data down into the IDE so you can view the data actually in the IDE and not have to leave that environment and go to a browser to view the dashboard and consume the data that way. You still can if you want, but the idea here is to bring that data closer to the developers so that they can stay focused on the work they're doing actually in the IDE. All those plugins that we maintain for Eclipse, Visual Studio, JetBrains, they're all free for customers. The data can be retrieved from the dashboard, like I said, into the IDE. The exception to that is the Eclipse IDE plugin. The Eclipse IDE plugin not only reads data from the dashboard, it also has the power to launch a scan. So the Visual Studio and the JetBrains don't do that, they just read. But Eclipse, because it's Java-based, and we happen to live in the Kiuwan is a Java-based tool, we're able to leverage that relationship and have the Eclipse plugin launch scans as well. And Aaron's going to show us how to do all that here in a moment. So it'll be pretty straightforward and easy. But the takeaways here before I hand it over to Aaron are that Kiuwan provides free IDEs to connect Kiuwan, the tool, into your IDE plugins to connect Kiuwan, the tool, into your IDEs. And if you happen to be connecting into an Eclipse IDE, you not only get viewing power, but you also can get launch power. You can start a scan. So with that, I'm going to hand over, he said, hopefully, control to change presenter to Aaron. And then Aaron, please, will you help us understand more about how to make the Kiuwan IDE plugin for Eclipse work?
Thank you, JD, for the preamble. Hello, everyone. Please let me share my screen. Can you confirm that you see my screen? Yes.
Sorry, yes, I can confirm. I can also confirm that my mute works.
All right, so, okay, so today I will show you how to install and play with the Kiuwan's plugin, as JD mentioned, so you can detect and resolve vulnerabilities and flaws directly in Eclipse with the Kiuwan IDE plugin. So let's get started. So the first thing that I suggest is to make sure that we have all the prereqs, that we meet all the prerequisites. We can check all this in our documentation that it's available in our website. We can send you those resources at the end of the session. The first thing is that just go to Window. I will show you how to install it from scratch so you can have a better idea. So go to Window here, install software. Then here we need to add type the following values. We will add a repository for Kiuwan. So we type Kiuwan, then the location, the URL. Let me copy it. There you are. So we click OK, and then Eclipse will query our server to retrieve the available features and version. Once it's done, you will see in the list Q1. Please check it. Click on Next. Let's give it a second. You see there the Q1 developers and the version that retrieved from the repository. Of course, if checking in Q1 and Next, and if you're a bit bored, you can always read the details. Okay. So here, please accept the terms of the license agreement. Click on Finish. And then the plugin will be installed. As you see there, it's downloading the software, installing the software. And then this display will be displayed. And please accept the certificate to sign in our product. We click on Accept Selected. And when installation finishes, Eclipse will ask to restart. We'll restart our IDE. And if everything goes right, the Eclipse IDE Kiuwan's plugin for Eclipse will be up and running. So let's give it a few seconds. All right, so let's see if it was installed. Something that it's important to mention is that the Kiuwan's plugin always checks in automatic or automatically for updates once it starts. So let's go to Window Preferences, and there's Kiuwan listed. Okay, we see here all the sections that we will explain with more detail further. Here you can see the version that it was installed. And something that we can do, we can check for updates or force the update if it's needed, right? Now, we have the plugin installed, then we need to connect to Kiuwan's cloud. So in order to do that, we fill some of these fields. And important thing here is that depending of the deployment, if you're running locally, that's a subject for another webinar. But well, you could use your own instance, but that's another thing, another story. So we leave it there by default. We use the credentials that we have for our account at Kiuwan. So in this case, this is my account. My password, I will not give it to you. I just type it. And then in case that you are using a proxy or any other special configuration, you can do it here. So we apply and check for the credentials. If everything is all right, okay, the connection was successful. Okay, we apply and close, and as well, it will check if it's the service alive. So here the central configuration is, as I mentioned, is in automatic synchronize at the IDE startup. And again, however, it is possible to force the update, no, as I mentioned. So you can see here, and I see that can be forced. Now I'll talk about the analysis filters with more detail. But as you see, it was checking in automatic, and it's downloading a new version of found a new version of the engine, and it's fetching it. All right, let's. Now, regarding the analysis filters, you can configure file inclusion and exclusion patterns for the analysis. That's something very powerful. And if you have any particular or specific filters, sorry, I strongly recommend you to check again our documentation for source code filters, and if you want to deep dive on this topic. Right, so here you can see type of patterns we can include. Now for the visualization options, you can, that's something that JD mentioned. We can here select for automatic remote defects synchronization. And this means that if we check this option, the plugin will automatically update the remote defects list when you select the project in Eclipse that is mapped to a Kiuwan application. I will show you shortly how we map the project to the IDE. And yeah, I will show you this. In the case that we mark defects as potential match, it means that the Kiuwan server reports a defect, which is source code text does not match or is not matching to the source with Eclipse, with your Eclipse project in this case. And then that defect is a potential match. If we check the plugin, it will mark those defects as potential match. So we will see there. All right. Okay, let's mark it. Well, let's apply these changes. Let's close them. Now I want to show you that the configuration is general for the plugin when you install it. But something that it's interesting is that you can configure the analysis filters per application. I will show you further how we do this. So we apply and close. Now I'll show you how to map the project with our application in Q1. And here again is what I mentioned before, that you can enable the settings specifically for each project, right? Okay, so let's move forward on this. Yeah, as I mentioned, I'll show you how to map your Eclipse project to Q1 application once the plugin is installed and the connection is configured. That's something that you need to do, that we already did, and then we are ready to do it. So in this case, here the IDE will query the instance or your account, and it would list the name of the applications you have already registered at Q1. So in this case, I have some examples. We will map for this webinar. Okay, so we apply and close. And then that's something that, as well, we mentioned before, that there's the possibility to perform an analysis in automatic. So if you want to run this analysis in automatic, you say yes. If not, then no. Please, some detail here that it's important to notice is that mapping your Eclipse project to a Q1 application allows executing a plugin analysis synchronized to the Q1 model that was defined at the application level. This means that the plugin analysis will be executed with the same order. With the same model, it means the rules, the configuration, and so on that we defined for the Q1 application. As well, when mapping your project to a Q1 application allows you to download the defect list found by Q1 servers to Eclipse. So you can work locally on fixing those effects. That's something very, very important to mention. Okay, it's bringing the model. So here, how we do it. Before moving forward, I want to add some of the views of the Q1 plugin, so this conversation will have more sense, and I will need them to explain you some of the features in a few seconds. So for that, we select the views, we select others, we select Q1, and then there are some views that we can add here. In this case, we selected defects for local. And that means that the server defects list displays of the application that are stored in the Q1 servers. And this is important because you as developers allows you to download defects found during the Q1 analysis of the application that you have in a centralized environment. We do the same for local and server, as mentioned as well. And if you're working with some metrics as well, you can bring that view as well. Now, our plugin can be configured to run in different execution modes. I will show you. We can do it manual. It means that you manually invoke the Kiuwan analysis, as I will show you here. You see here, then run the analysis. And you see that it's executing the analysis on demand. And let's wait for the results. In the meantime, we can check the progress of what it's doing. And when it's in automatic, the Kiuwan analysis is executed automatically upon the change in the code. It means that by configuring the plugin, you can always decide when Kiuwan will be executed and which files will be analyzed. That's something as well. If you want to concentrate some part of your job, this is where you do it. I will show you. Use it here. So this is the part where you decide if you want to have it in automatic, right? Okay. Now you see that we have the list of the defects that were found locally. And again, if you forgot how to add the views, this is the way we do it, just to make sure that you have it there. Okay. Now let me show you let me show the local defect list that I mentioned before, and how the local defects list displays the flows or the defects found during the local analysis that were executed within your IDE. So let's double click there. I will show you something very powerful. As you see, it puts you there exactly in the line. So you see how the cursor was placed on the affected line, right? I mentioned that already. So let me show something very cool. And then something very interesting here is that we can have more information about the rule. So we right click on defect, and so we can have a better understanding. And let I show you what is going to happen. So what the IDE is doing is forward us to our account. You might need to enter your credentials. You log in, and you see here we will have very valuable information that will help us to fix the flaw or the possible error that or defect that we found. And then it's you can read the description and have more one idea and say, oh, I gotcha. I see what is going on here. And what is very important is that you have a reference for the CWE. No? We can see here more details about the violation code. If you want to see some examples here, this is a place. And let's get back to our IDE. So now it's I think it's time to talk about the local analysis configuration. I show you how we do it. The idea is here that the Kiuwan plugin will execute the analysis with the rules contained in the model that it was associated to the application map at Kiuwan, right? But also it allows us to reduce the scope of the analysis to a subset of that model. Let me show you. It means when you execute the local analysis here at your IDE, when you project, the number of defects can be really quite large. So sometimes it doesn't make sense to work on all of them. And then, of course, our plan should be considered to reduce the analysis so we can, or you can concentrate on the most important subset of defects. So it will let you to focus what is important to solve right now. And for that, this plugin allows you to configure the local analysis to only report you defects based on priority or characteristics languages, or even some subset of files or file that or base or contains file paths or substrings or configuration that you want to add there. It's that granular that we can do it. So here a little bit more how you can deploy these options. So as I mentioned, you can set there by priority. Another important thing is that you can set a limit of the number of defects. You see it here that are displayed in the list, and we have 100 by default. But of course, you can increase such a limit. But of course, it has some cost in the performance of your IDE. So that's something that you will decide. Again, here you can select the language and the patterns that I mentioned you, and here the number of items you want to select. Okay. Important thing is that you can access the local analysis configuration by clicking always on the icon of the local defect list. Okay. So now let's click there on the icon of defects, and let's see how the list of is defined to be the filters. I mentioned you can do it by project, and regardless of how you have configured the subset of defects, the Kiuwan for developers analysis you see above, you will see it. And with this, it's possible that you can even further reduce the defects view, and you can define additional filtering condition. Because the most important filter is the scope. You will show you. And yeah, and additionally, yeah, I think we mentioned this a bit. You can select how you want to filter, which point you want to get. Similar to the previous display. Here as well, it's important to mention that in your model you define and you want to mute some defects that can be detected as false positive, you can do it there. Okay. Now this is a part of the local. You may ask, what about the defects from the server, as we mentioned before at the beginning of this conversation. So we do it, show you. So in this case, you see that it's empty, the list, but we click on refresh, and it'll fetch. It fetches, brings the defects that are stored in the server side. And this is very important because, as JD mentioned, you can compare what is being running locally and what is already been corrected or been worked in the server side. And as well, you can configure the contents that you are going to bring based on the last baseline analysis, for example, or you can do it by some other parameters. Let me show you. For example, here you have defined with your team some action plan that you are working. In this case, to illustrate in this example, we create an action plan called very high defects based on security, because can be in some other patterns based on security, all the languages, for example, and to match OWASP, right? So we can do this. You can select as well here by audit delivery. So the defects that must be fixed, so the audit of the delivery can be successful. And then you can select among the, you can select the delivery among the list of executed deliveries. I'll show you how it can be. And besides to configure source and filters, you can as well reduce further the server defects by listing additional filtering conditions, as we showed before in for the local defects local. Yeah, and you can do it. You can do that as well, clicking on the icon for filter, and you can do it as granular or as tailored as meets your requirements. And again, if you want more reference, I recommend you again to check our documentation. I think I think the idea of this short demo was not to a course of Eclipse IDE, but just to show you how it looks and how you can leverage some of the features that the plugin delivers directly to your IDE. I think it's all from my side, JD. If you want to add something more.
Okay, I do. Thanks. I'm going to take control back, if you don't mind.
Thank you. Please, thank you, everybody.
And then, Aaron, I think, correct me if I'm wrong. Here, let me change screens again. So you just showed us how to use the Kiuwan IDE plugin for Eclipse, and the first part of what you did was this link here to it was just using our procedure to install Kiuwan. Is that correct?
That's correct, because the idea is that you can replicate what we have if you want to have some quick reference and check what we did. It's documented in our website.
And
yes.
Yeah, that link takes us to the Kiuwan.com website, resources, product documentation, correct?
Yes, and you can search there for Eclipse IDE, and you will find this procedure if you want to learn more, or if something that I mentioned was not very clear. For sure, the documentation will help us to clarify about it.
Excellent. And then the last portion, or after we got it installed and up and connected, the rest of it was, I don't think that's covered as deeply in our web pages. That's how to use and pull all the power out of the IDE plugin. And I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, that's going to be in this webinar as it gets posted to Kiuwan.com webinars. And then again, probably on our YouTube channel later on. Is that right? So if people got lost or they want to remember what you did, they can come and watch the video of the more advanced things that you did with the plugin.
Absolutely. This was just the short test drive, so they can see it how it looks.
Excellent. And then for everybody else on the call, so we're still at Kiuwan.com webinars. There's many more videos to watch if you want to.
Yeah, and you can always reach us and send us some notes, and we will be more than happy to help.
Excellent. On that note, let's change channels again. So you showed us. Thank you again for showing us how to use the Eclipse plugin, and we have a link so that people can read the instructions on how to do it, and they can come back and watch the video to learn how to get more power out of what they just did. But then the last thing you said was that if you have any other questions or comments, we didn't see many questions today on our webinar, so that's good. Oops.
Maybe it means two things. It was very, very clear, or it was not very clear, but.
Yeah, and Roberto, so there is one question, and I see you, Roberto. We'll show you that here in a minute. Roberto wants to know if we can show the metrics. But for everyone else, here are some coordinates so you can reach us. So you can go to the documents pages we were talking about. You can go to our YouTube channel and watch the videos again. Or you can email us. Aaron and I are not hard to find, and we can
drop us an email. Drop us an email, and Roberto, I will elaborate more for you if you have some more questions about the metrics.
Okay, so on that note, then Roberto, we have your contact information obviously because you registered for this. So Aaron will contact you and give you a detailed tour of the metrics. So having said that, and seeing no other questions, then I'll go ahead and thank everyone for joining and encourage folks to stay safe and healthy. And hopefully we'll see you or speak to you again on another Kiuwan webinar. There are webinars every month. I think we have them planned out well into 2021. So stay tuned. If you have a topic that you would like us to cover, feel free to send us a note, and Aaron and I will probably be more than happy to either create a proper webinar that we give to everybody, or create some videos that we can share on our YouTube channel or on our webinar page and send back to you so that you can share those with others, or just actually get onto a call with you and show you how to do what you want to get done right there. So having said that, thank you again, everyone, for joining. And until next month, this has been Kiuwan signing out. Stay safe and healthy. We'll talk to you next month.
Thank you, everybody.